This is the Online Learning Podcast. Welcome to episode 9. Are you making the most of the person you can be? Online learning is your gateway to expanding your horizons in a direction you may not even have thought of. Hello, I'm John Colley. Here on the Online Learning Podcast, we challenge you to find the online learning courses to take you to your next level. Expert in something? Why not create your own course and monetize that expertise? Come on, open this door with me and step inside the Online Learning Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the Online Learning Podcast, and as ever, I'm very grateful that you have taken time out of your busy day to spend some time with me, so it's great to have you here. I've got a fantastic interview for you this week. I'm talking to Kathy Presland, who is an eBook author, and she's going to talk all about how she helps people write and self-publish their books. And of course, she's got some interesting courses on Udemy all about this. But before we do that, let's talk and look at this week's marketing tip of the week. And now, the Online Learning Podcast's marketing tip of the week. In this week's marketing tip of the week, I'd like to take a page, quite literally, out of Udemy's marketing game book and suggest that you set up your own Facebook page for your Udemy course. And maybe you do it for each of the courses you do. It's probably more practical just to do it for any of your Udemy students and focus them all in one place. There's always the chance then that, of course, they may cross-sell or purchase other courses from you. The big question you have to ask yourself is, do you make this an open group or do you make it a closed group? And I would make it a closed group so that you can just keep it exclusive to those people who actually sign up for your course. And what you do is you send them an invitation to the group and then they can apply and then you can approve them and then they're in. And this will give you the opportunity to take questions from them and interact and get to know them, encourage them to give feedback, and basically it enables you to develop a little sub-community of your own to interact with your student base through Udemy. And of course, this applies for any other social media platform or any other e-learning platform that you happen to be working with. So that's this week's marketing tip. Set up your own Facebook page for your online courses and get to know your students. So good luck with that. Do let me know how you get on with it. Now it's time for this week's interview. We're meeting Kathy Presland, an ebook expert, a writer in her own right. And she's going to talk to us all about how she helps people with self-publishing and Kindle ebooks. So let's go across and meet Kathy. And now it's time for this week's Course Creator interview. Today I'm really excited to be able to bring you an interview with Kathy Presland. Now, Kathy is a very interesting lady in the area of publishing. She helps people write and self-publish. I think it's non-fiction books, but she'll clarify that for us, I'm sure. And she specializes getting content onto the Amazon Kindle platform. So if any of you thinking about republishing or repurposing your content, this is one you will not want to watch. Kathy, welcome to the Online Learning Podcast.
Thank you, John. It's really great to be here.
No, it's great to have you on. I appreciate you giving up your valuable time. Could you just start off by just introducing yourself and let people know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, totally. Well, I do work in the area of non-fiction. You're completely spot on with that. Right. And I help, got that one right. So I help people basically get their content into a book format and onto the Amazon Kindle platform, although obviously other platforms are available as well. And I do talk a little bit about those in my content. But my real specialism is digital content because it's so easy for us to get our content out there. We can be on the web. We don't have to kind of wait to be picked. I think there's a still a little bit of a perception in publishing, especially in the non-fiction area, that we kind of have to wait to be asked by a publisher, or we have to have an agent. And of course, that's completely not the case. We can all set up a website and blog, and likewise, with a little bit of effort and a little bit of a minor amount of investment, we can actually create a book and we can get it out into the world very, very easily. So I work with authors who are, most of them are not primarily writers, which is, I think, another block that a lot of us have. It's about, gosh, I'm not a writer. I really focus on people who either have something to say because they've had an experience, or they have some kind of story to tell, or they want to write to have a book as part of their business strategy. So to help position them for speaking engagements, to sometimes really just to have additional revenue streams, sometimes to have something on Amazon. Of course, Amazon itself is a massive search engine, and if you have a book up there and people are searching for that content, and it's a great book, and you're able to get it ranked in Amazon, then of course people will find you. You can have links inside of your book to bring people back to your website. So a lot of authors I work with are very interested in how to use Amazon for lead generation, to for wider business growth, and basically to get more exposure for their business. So it very much helps us as business owners look very professional, to have published books. We're still, there's still a lot of respect, I think, that's given to somebody who's a published author, and that's really the space that I help shift somebody to go from, well, I've got an idea and I'd maybe like to write a book someday, but I'm not sure quite how to go about it, to actually becoming a published author. So, and I do that, we're obviously here today to talk about my online courses. But I've got other things that I do as well.
But why? Let's just talk a little bit about the Kindle platform, because this podcast is all about online learning, and of course one of the easiest ways to learn online is to find a good book on Kindle, download it to your iPad, and then read it on your iPad. Why? I think I know the answer to the question, but I think for the benefit of the online learning podcast community, why do you think Kindle is the place to go?
Well, I think it's just the size and the power of Amazon. I don't want to say they've got a monopoly, but we've recently seen Barnes & Noble, who had their own platform, the Nook. They are going to have to let that go because they just haven't managed to gain traction. And there are other readers. There's Kobo, there's a Sony e-reader. There are other platforms. We're at that stage of technology, I think, where there are a number of competing platforms, and at some point, I think one or two dominant technologies will emerge. But at this point in time, I think Amazon has the lion's share of the market. They sell millions and millions of e-readers, and I think it's the obvious place to be. Now, you can put your digital book on all of these platforms. It's a very easy process, and I have a couple of services that I recommend to people who, with one click and, again, a small amount of investment, can get their book on all of these platforms. It can be on iBooks, it can be on Kindle, it can be everywhere. But Amazon does reward you for being exclusively with Amazon. They have a couple of programs that you can choose as an author to join or not to join, where if you are with them exclusively, they give you additional benefits. So I still think at this point in time, it's worth thinking about being with Amazon exclusively. It's that kind of 80-20 rule, we sometimes talk about in business, that if you put 20% of your effort into something and get 80% of the return from it, then those marginal returns take you a lot of additional effort.
And that's hugely with you on that one. I'm a great believer in the 80-20 rule. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is really with Amazon, is yes, absolutely, you can get exposure on the other platforms. And I will say that some of my clients actually do sell a lot of books through the other platforms. So, it's definitely worth looking at them. But for a first-time author, one of the things that is often a block to us is the technology. There are other things which are part of the process, but one of the things is the technology. And I think make it as easy as possible, maximize the returns from what you're doing. And, if you want to take it to other platforms as a second step, if you want to take your book into print as a second step, all of that is still available to you. You still have those choices, but you just don't have to do it all at once. So yeah, that's really my rationale.
The other question I want to ask you about ebooks, and this will lead into talking about your courses, is there's been a lot of discussion I've read about the length of an ebook on the Kindle platform, and particularly in the sort of the non-fiction area. And you've had things like Seth Godin's Domino Project, where he's been advocating, really sort of quite short books in some cases, 10,000 words. and the standard, fiction novel is 60 to 70,000. So where do you recommend for non-fiction in terms of length? Because writing a 60,000 word book as a project the amount of effort is not proportional to the number of words.
Absolutely. And again, it's almost as if you enter the project thinking, oh, this is a great idea. I'm, really enthusiastic. You get part way through, and then I think that's when books become those things that we never finish, and it sits on a shelf somewhere, or it sits on your computer file somewhere. And that's another thing I really love about digital books is that you can make them shorter. And I think just because of the nature of the digital platforms, readers do really appreciate having smaller books in about that 15 to 20,000 word range. Now, obviously, it varies. Somebody who's writing maybe a fitness book with some images or a recipe book, actually the word count is going to be much shorter. Somebody who's writing, really comprehensive guides or something, they may be up to 30,000, 40,000. But I think that if you're in that kind of 15 to 20,000 word ballpark, you have a pretty solid book that is going to do well and is going to be regarded as complete content. Yeah. I do think there's been, I think we're kind of coming out of the trend, but there was a trend about sort of a year, 9 months ago, where people would publish very short books, basically articles, 2,000 words, 5,000 words. And at that end of the spectrum, I think that can leave readers really dissatisfied. It's almost like this is a sales letter or it's an article or you're not going in depth. And I think that can be damaging, particularly to a business person. It can be damaging to our reputation because obviously we want to get good reviews. We're usually there because we want to position ourselves as the expert, and 2,000 word kind of ebook is not really positioning ourselves as the expert. We do need to go in depth, and I think we need over 10,000 words to be able to explain our concepts, explain our process and how to. And I definitely think that's kind of the ballpark. And I think for print books, it's funny you should mention Seth Godin, because actually I was having a discussion with somebody about print books. And, once you get a book into print, you want to have something to hold in your hand. And then there's that kind of, again, that perception that sort of 40 to 60,000 words is okay for a short business book. But actually a lot of Seth Godin's books, in fact, are shorter than that. He's written a couple of really quite short books. And so I think, again, the whole notion of what is a book is actually being shattered slightly, and we can go from, I recently read a John Irving novel, which I think was, certainly well over 200 pages. It was probably closer to 100,000 words than 60,000 words, and I enjoyed it and it was absolutely fantastic. But equally, I love to read, particularly non-fiction, things that are, really short, really specific, that I can get through and that I can get a takeaway from. So,
nobody's taught Tim Ferriss to write a book of under 500 pages yet.
I know. And actually, he's another interesting thing, because I usually have a mantra that I work with people. I work with people and I talk to them about having, taking those 10,000 words or those 20,000 words and having a really clear message, having one really, really clear point and going in depth with that point, and, not trying to cover absolutely everything that we know or that we've experienced and bring it into a book. And in fact, Tim actually covers lots of different areas. It's almost as if he's writing 3 or 4 different books, I think, in some areas.
I absolutely love the 4-Hour Chef. I've even been cooking for dinner parties now. I think it scared the wits out of my wife, but I only produced one dish. But the strength of a bit of paper learning as opposed to online learning. Let's move on a little bit. How did you get into creating courses then? You've obviously got a huge amount of knowledge about publishing. How did that then evolve into course creation, and particularly into online course creation?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a long story. My background is that I'm an economist. I've worked overseas. I worked in Africa for a long time. I've worked in government in the UK, and also I've worked across the European Union quite a lot. I left work a few years ago, went into business, and actually had a first business which was fairly short-lived. And then I became a business coach. I started to do mentoring with other businesses. And as part of that, actually, that was when I first got into online learning, because I found myself, as I'm sure those of us who are coaches or consultants, we find ourselves repeating the same things again and again. We see people going through the same processes again and again. So I actually created a course, first of all. I do still sell it, but I don't really actively promote it. So I created a short course so that that anybody could take that. They didn't have to come and coach with me personally. They could just take the online course, and it was very much the same process that I was working through with people one-to-one. So that was my first experience of course creation. Hosted that on my own site. Lots of pros and cons to doing that. And then actually from that, I then wrote a book, put the same content into a book, which is another great thing I'd say about publishing, is that we can actually use the same material, whether it's in a book, whether it's in an online course. There's an opportunity to repurpose that content, because different consumers or different customers will like to hear things or see things in different ways. So somebody may much rather sit down with the book, and somebody may much rather come to an in-person workshop with you. And it's basically the same message, the same content. So anyway, I wrote a business book a few years ago, put that onto Kindle, went through the whole experience. And then because I had done that, I found more and more of my business owners were asking me about that. That became, my business basically evolved into working with other people on their books. And that's how I got into online learning, and then experimented with some of the online learning platforms. As you know, I've got courses with Udemy, and came into it that way.
All right. Yeah, very sort of a course of evolution. I think it's really, you're telling the story of the sort of development of online education, where it's gone from the point where people were creating courses and putting them on their own site, and now you've got these aggregating sites, which of course provide a marketplace and provide an audience, which is much greater than you and I can aggregate individually, and then it starts to become more interesting.
Well, it does, and I think because I had the experience with putting content on Amazon, I think I was particularly open to it. I found a lot of my colleagues in the kind of online space, the expert space, feel as if they want to have, we want our own email list, we want our own leads, we want content on our own site. But actually, I could see the benefit of Amazon and the power of Amazon as a search engine, the power of Amazon to spread my content, to get reviews, to get me customers. And so I was pretty open actually to this, the whole idea of, I call them retail platforms, marketplaces. Yeah, I don't know quite what the right terminology is, because, there are pros and cons, and sometimes we want content on our own sites. And sometimes we actually want it available to everybody. So yeah, I've been really open to it.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Let's hone down a little bit more now. I know you've got 2 courses on the Udemy platform, one of which is free, and the other one's going to be our Spotlight course. So could you introduce those, perhaps?
Yeah, I've actually got 5 courses.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
But, no, it's okay. But 2 that we're going to talk about today. I know, a bit prolific. I call it my flagship course, really. But our spotlight course for today is the Publish Your Book on Kindle, and that is, in fact, it was the first course I put up on Udemy, and it's, I consider it to be my main course. It's the one where I'm very concerned to provide updates. I like to interact with the students. I really see that as my is the thing that I think presents what I do. So that is the whole process of basically taking what and putting it into a book and putting it onto the Amazon Kindle platform. So it goes into depths on the technology of publishing. We talk about marketing. I also look at how to create a book, how to format it. I have a couple of different ways that I recommend people format their books, how to get your cover design done, really the whole process from beginning to end. That if you are somebody who's in business, or you're somebody who's got some kind of a knowledge, or sometimes people just have manuscripts, that they've written, maybe they haven't quite finished them. They want to know how to quickly and easily get it onto Amazon, which can happen practically overnight if you have everything set up correctly. That's the course that takes you through the whole of that process. I think I've got about 12 hours of content in there. Wow. It's really, really comprehensive stuff. Mm.
And the other course, which is the sort of your perhaps, is it like a lead-in course for that, or is it by the nature of free courses on Udemy, they tend to be slightly shorter, but often they're a showcase for the course creator. Which course is that?
Yeah, the free course that I've got is called Becoming a Writer, and I actually thought long and hard about how to do this, because, as you've said, a lot of course creators will create kind of a light version of their flagship or their main paid content and just put it out there to give people a taster. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that, because I wanted to make sure I was providing something, which was complete and which was really useful to the students, to the person taking the course. So in fact, it is a short course. It's about an hour in length. There's quite a long PDF that goes with it. And it's actually writing exercises for people who are non-fiction writers. As I think I said at the beginning, I work primarily with people in the non-fiction arena, although actually I do have some fiction writers who've taken my Kindle course, because the actual technical process of putting your book up is obviously the same. Yeah. But the writing exercises are focused for non-fiction writers. So anybody who is blogging, anybody who wants to, ultimately wants to write a book. I've had people who've been experienced writers who say they've found them really, really useful. People who are new writers have said that they find them, really great to get going. So I think of them like kind of warm-up exercises. When we go to the gym, we do a couple of minutes warm-up before we get into the main exercise program that we're doing. And this is exactly what this course is, Becoming a Writer, is all about. Those, it's meant to be 1 or 2 minutes just first thing before you sit down to write, to just help you practice some techniques, but also to just get warmed up and get ready to write and get into the flow before you start writing. So it's a bit of a different focus, but it's it's complete and in depth in itself.
I think I should be definitely going over to have a look at that after this. Just going back to your Spotlight course, Publish Your Book on Kindle. You've already alluded to some of the things that are in it. I think it'd be interesting to hear from you, and based on your experience. What are the sort of the bottlenecks that people find most daunting about trying to put a book on Kindle, and how do you address them? I'm not asking you for the step-by-step of how to do it, but it's, in the whole process, which are the things which are perceived by people who are doing this for the first time as the most difficult? And, how do you help them to overcome it?
Well, there are a couple of things. I think before I created the course, I was very aware that people found the technology daunting, as we do when we don't know how to do anything. And what I found is that it's actually easier to create a Kindle account and to get your book up there than it is to create a Facebook page. Oh. So, I say that to people and nobody believes me, but sometimes I even demonstrate it to them. So first is the technology. But when I actually was researching with potential customers before I created the course, I found in addition to that, people also have a bottleneck between at a much earlier stage, in that stage of I'm not sure how to organise my content into a book. So it's actually that they have all of this stuff that they know, all of these things that we have in our heads. Sometimes we actually have material, we've got courses, maybe there are other podcasters out there who've got lots of content, and it's how to actually put that into a book. So all the questions about how long should it be, how to structure it, is it going to sell? All of those questions about organising the content and deciding what to write on, things that actually come way before the process of publishing on Kindle, was another area that I found a lot of people were blocked. I found most of the audience that I reached out to, they had either started a book or they had a part-written book. Few people who hadn't started, but lots of people who'd actually started or who knew what they wanted to write on, but just found the whole process overwhelming. So I ended up, when I created the course, adding a couple of modules right at the front end about how to overcome that, what kinds of books you can create, how you can structure them, walking through the writing process in a little bit of, not in a great amount of depth. I have other courses on writing, but, walking through that process to basically really help somebody actually get their book done and also get it up on Kindle. So, obviously the technology, that's a given, whether it's the formatting or it's the actual process of uploading on Amazon. Of course, we cover all of that. But it's at both of those ends. I found that people tended to be blocked. And I think that's not something that's specific to Amazon. I think that will happen everywhere. I know your audience here is going to be in part people who want to create courses, and I think it's the same there. We have an idea, but actually how do we go from the idea in our head to something which is actually uploaded onto a course platform? And it's the content, the organisation, and also the technology, which can be very off-putting.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'm interested to hear your view on this. One of the things I've considered, I've had a lot of written content through my blog. I've got nearly 300 blog posts, and some of them actually are quite long. I mean, I can get carried away and write 2,000 words without any trouble. Now, I've often thought that could be grouped together, and with a certain of additional editing and maybe a few bit more linking pieces, be used to create ebook type material. And I suppose the two questions to you really are: is this a good idea? One, and secondly. You said that Amazon rewards you if you're exclusively available to them. I mean, how do they regard that sort of content?
Yeah, in fact, they have recently become a lot more strict about having content available on other platforms. So if you were to take your blog content and compile it into a book and publish it, then you would really have to take down some of those blog posts, not all of them, but you'd have to unpublish some of the blog posts, or you might risk Amazon taking your book down. And they've recently become I think a lot more strict about this, and I know a number of authors who've had, even where they've only had a couple of blog posts, they've actually had their content taken down, and then you end up in kind of to and fro email situation with Amazon. So first of all, there's the kind of terms of service requirement that it's your content. Obviously, you can publish it wherever you want to, but you can't publish the whole of the content in other sources or being freely available on your blog. Otherwise, Amazon will potentially penalise you. The other side of that is that if you retrospectively take content that you've got, like blog posts, which tend to be standalone pieces, it can be, I think, more difficult to create a really strong book than if you start with that intention. So it's absolutely a great way to go. If you think you want to write a book, you maybe do some outlining, and then you actually write each chapter or each section as a blog post, because you know where you're going, you've got an overall theme and a message. But sometimes those books that are really just collections of blog posts, unless they're very entertaining or they have something really quite special about them, and sometimes it is just in the writing, it's in the humor, it's in the message that comes through, short inspirational pieces that can work. But for the kind of how-to book, I think you probably need a little bit of thought. So I have a guy that I've worked with very recently who has a series of podcasts, and he was going to transcribe them and put them into a book. And I said, actually, what you'll find is that, first of all, they'll be too long. Each chapter will be, much longer than you want it to be. But also they won't make sense, because in a podcast, and I know he's done this with his podcast, they tend to touch on a number of things. Yeah. And actually, if you want a theme that runs through the book, and you want each story, in his case, to pick up one particular part of that theme, you'll probably be better served to actually edit them down. So there's a little bit of strategic thinking that goes into that creation process. In his case, he's worked with a writer. It's been very easy for him to sit down, spend a couple of hours mapping out the book, and then he's recruited a writer who can pull out the essence. He said, I want this story to make this point, and he's had those rewritten, and he's very close to getting his book published. So it is absolutely possible, but I'd recommend probably you've got an editor or somebody to help you really repurpose that and to theme it all together, to thread it all together.
So, I mean, who would you say your ideal audience is for this course? What sort of people do you find taking the course, and do you find yourself talking to?
I find people who are in business already, people who have some kind of a business, or they have some kind of a service, or they have some kind of a commercial offering, usually service providers or information kind of experts and consultants, people like that. And Although I do work with people who are writers, it's usually people who want to do this as part of a bigger business strategy. So that's something else I also look at in the course is what else can you do? What other business models are there around your content? How can you repurpose that? So I think I cover about 9 different ways that you can also fit a book into your business, and the sorts of opportunities that become available to you. So it's not necessarily people who have a business online. It can be people who have a business offline. So I work with management trainers, I work with fitness experts, I work with copywriters, a whole range of people, but usually small smallish entrepreneurs or people with a relatively small scale business who just want to raise their profile. Maybe they want to start speaking, or they want to write up their content and maybe then transition into online learning. I find a lot of people who've been through the course actually then want to think about creating online courses. They then think, actually, I really like this putting my content into something which which is widely available without me having to be there. And then the next step very often is that they want to use that as a stepping stone to create some online learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm delighted to hear that, because I'm a huge believer I'm a huge believer in lifelong learning anyway. And I've found, I've been listening to podcasts and I've been reading a lot, and I've found now I've started taking people's online courses. It's the learning curve is so much faster, because the courses, particularly if they're well written, are delivering a very clear, objective, focused message, and you just burn through the stuff, and it's very engaging.
Yep. And I love that, because I think, especially for online learning, people find it really practical. And I have people in my Kindle course who tell me that they watch certain videos again and again, and when they're at the stage of needing to do something, they have the video open, they have the screen open where they have to set up their account, and they're moving between the two, stopping and starting the video, and actually doing the work at the time that they need to do it. So,
and at the pace that they're comfortable with. Yeah.
And at the pace that they're comfortable with. Actually, I had somebody, she was in one of my offline groups, a slightly older lady, let me just say. She's at the end of her career as a management trainer, and she's transitioning into speaking. And she was there. She said, she was there. It took her the whole evening, and she was backwards and forwards and setting it up and just going through the video at the pace that she wanted, and having that really practical experience. So you get to the end of the course, and the thing is done. It's not just abstract learning, fantastic as that is. This is something that if you need a practical skill, you want to be shown how to do something, we as course providers, as course creators, we're there on tap on your computer to walk you through this process at your own pace. It's fantastic.
It's really, really powerful. So if I'm a sort of I am in the position where I'm not quite sure where I would start to put a book together. How would you describe the benefits? Why should I take your course? Why don't I just go along and follow? Kindle must have some sort of FAQ or sort of tutorial process. What are the benefits of working with your course?
They do. Kindle they have great help. They have very extensive technical information. The benefit of working with a course like mine is, I think it's twofold. Is first of all, I give you a more strategic overview, and I give you the benefits of my experience and the experience of the people that I've worked with. So at the very beginning, I talk you through your different options for publishing, and whether going exclusively with Amazon Kindle is right for you, or whether you should think about going with the other platforms as well, and how to do that. So, I bring that experience, and although it's very easy to be shown in something like a technical help menu how to go through the Amazon book upload process, what each of the buttons does, again, there's a refinement and a judgment to know exactly, for example, how to price your book. It's on the one hand a separation between saying, this is where you type in the number, which is what Amazon will tell you, and then what I will tell you, which is actually you probably want to think about pricing here if this is your objective. If you have this other objective, then actually this price range is probably a better price for you. So there's the kind of the strategic overview, which somebody who's I'm not affiliated with Amazon, clearly, that I'm, a great fan and it's a great platform, but my interest is in getting you the best outcome for your business and for your book. So there's that. And I think also my course, it's wider than just the how to get your book onto Kindle and how to actually just upload it. So it is about taking what you have. We've had a bit of discussion about your blog, and it's about taking that. I have a couple of different formats that I walk people through. That should you create a how-to book? Should you create a a kind of a compilation book. Maybe you want to create an anthology where you bring together lots of different authors. So actually I give you different models that I keep saying you, John, but, for example, whether you want to bring your own content, or obviously you're bringing together a huge number of experts through your podcast. Maybe at some point it might be appropriate for you to think about publishing an anthology. So, so I look at different models, to get your content, to get your profile raised into Amazon. So, I think that's the main differences between literally just working through the Amazon technical help, which is fantastic, and it's really not at all difficult to do that. But, but giving that kind of greater benefit to understanding your business, mapping out your objectives, and then, walking you through a path that is right for you.
Yeah, and I can see that. That's very compelling, because a lot of the stuff I talk about with people is not just the mechanics. It's also it's not the surface layer. It's not the how. It's the why, and it's the more complex layers below that top layer, which is just the basics of how do you do something. So no, I completely get all that. Now I will start to twist your arm before we finish to get a coupon out of you. I do that with all my interviewees, and I know you have come prepared in that regard. But let's just turn, if we can, and try and give some a little bit of benefit to people who are creating courses at the moment, because that's a really important part of my audience in the online learning podcast. So have you got a tip or two for course creators based on your own experience? Maybe we can explore that for a minute or two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gosh, we could probably spend the whole interview talking about this, actually. I've got two related tips, I think. One is something that I did do right, and another is something that I didn't do right, which I'd suggest they avoid. And, actually, that's another thing I have in my course. I don't want to keep going on about the course, but I talk about my mistakes, and I get quite a few people who comment in the reviews about that I'm not afraid to talk about the things that I've done wrong, obviously, so that, you try and avoid them. But when it comes to course creation, one of the things that I did very intentionally, which I would strongly recommend that a new course creator also does, is that I created a lot of very short videos. So my course, it's modular, and then within each module there are short videos. So some of them are longer, about 20 minutes, but many of them are in that kind of 5 to 10 minute range. And I think there are a couple of reasons why it's important to do that as a course creator. Is, first of all, from the perspective of your consumer, my videos, obviously they're very clearly labelled. They each attach, they each cover one particular part of the process. So, for example, creating your account is one video, uploading your book is another video. I have a couple of different videos on cover. So if somebody just needs to laser in on one part of the process, they don't want to have to go through an hour-long video and they can't remember exactly where it is, they can just watch that specific 5 or 10 minute video. So I have lots and lots of my students who really appreciate that, and they, as I've said, they'll often go back to certain videos if they need to either redo that part of the process, or maybe they didn't watch it the first time, but now they want to go back and look at different sites you can promote your book. They can go back specifically to a video. So create lots of short videos. Your students will really, really appreciate that. And I think from a course creator perspective, again, I guess this reflects back also to the writing process, is that it can be very overwhelming when we say we're going to create a course or we're going to write a book. And there's that kind of perfectionism that comes up, is, gosh, it's got to be great, and it's a half-an-hour video, and it could take you the whole day to do it, and you re-record it, and then there was a glitch in the middle, and you have to, it just goes on, and you never get the thing finished. But it's much less intimidating, much less complex to say, I'm just going to record a 5-minute video on one part of the process, and hopefully you'll get these off pat, and they'll start to come. And you can really get to completion much more quickly. So I think both for the course creators listening, but also to respect your potential students out there, I think create lots of short videos is the way to go. One video, one topic, and then organise them into modules, have some sort of structure. And I think I chose to do that, and I think it's worked really well. I definitely do it again. So that's my tip. And I think related to that, one thing which I thought was helpful at the time was that because I had all these short videos, actually I numbered them. So, for example, in module 6, I have, video 6.1. I have I have this on my slides, and in fact, I wouldn't do this. What I would say to a course creator is, I didn't at the time I created this think about repurposing the content, but because it is so big, it has got so much content in it. If I had organised it differently, I could have taken modules out and potentially packaged them as separate courses, which might give a potential customer, a bit of a taster at a lower price, or somebody who only needs part of the process. Sometimes people have got their finished manuscript, they only need the uploading part. They're not interested in formatting it. So that was a mistake, I guess, that I numbered them all, and I refer and cross-reference to each other, and I'd say to a potential creator, just do them, and maybe think about using them as standalone videos if you want to in the future. But don't sweat it. I mean, you must know what it's like, John. There's so much going on here that just do it.
Yes, no, I completely agree. I mean, the things I'd add to that is don't, whatever you do, end your video by saying, and in the next video we are going to look at X, Y, or Z. Much better to say something simple like, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah.
So that you have a walkout without tying yourself to the structure.
I definitely do that. I do say I'll see you in the next video, but I definitely have those kind of that kind of content where I say, in the next video we're going to look at X, Y, Z. And what I found is, even if, not that I even necessarily want to create other courses, but I even have a hesitation, just for example, uploading some of the videos as free promotional content to YouTube, because they don't stand alone. Then it's like, well, you get to the end, and then where is this other video? Oh, I've got to go and buy the courses. So yeah, I'm so with you on that.
And the other thing I would add, and I've been guilty of this, is when you're creating your videos, don't for heaven's sake mention things like, Udemy or any other platform that you're planning to put it on. Not because in any way I don't want to market Udemy. I mean, I'm doing an awful lot of that on this podcast as it is. But if you want to put your course then on a different platform, you'll really hoist by your own petard when it says, Udemy, and actually you're on something else. Or indeed, you may just want to host it on your own website. In which case people are saying, well, what's all this Udemy stuff about? Have you, pinched a course off Udemy? So I think keeping it neutral from that point of view means you can repurpose it in different places much more easily.
I completely agree with you, and I know Udemy has is a non-exclusive platform, so they don't require us to be exclusive with our content, which is a great opportunity. But again, when we're thinking about creating content, we don't always think of it in that way. So again, I'm completely with you, and I'm sure I mentioned Udemy in some of my courses as well.
I know I have. I'm just scratching my head what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah.
Let's go on then and just talk about discounts if we could, because I'm determined to get a coupon code out of you, because this course sounds absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure the members of the community will really appreciate the opportunity to take it and benefit from listening to the online learning podcast by not having to pay completely 100% of the full price. So what have you got for us today?
Yeah, well, I've got a very generous 50% discount for your listeners, John. I don't often discount my courses. Those who may be more familiar with the online learning platforms will realise that some of the platforms run a kind of discount pricing model, and I've actually opted out of that because I'd rather focus on a small number of quality students who are really, really serious and who I can help and work with and answer questions. But you have twisted my arm on this, and because we live close to each other, we've got lots of common connections here, that I'm instead of the $199, I'm going to create a coupon which allows your listeners to join the course for $99.
That's really generous. Thank you very much indeed. And what coupon code should they apply for that?
They should apply a code of OLP99, but I think you're going to create a special link for them, aren't you?
What I always do is if you want to just go and get the course and get the discount, that's great. Go to Udemy. The title of the course is Publish Your Book on Kindle. Search on that, input the code, and you can get it. I've created a pretty link, which will be in the show notes. The pretty link is jbdcolley.com/CP for Kathy Presland 99, and that, if you choose to click on that link, will take you through the affiliate scheme so that the online learning podcast will get some benefit financially as well as Kathy. But it's entirely up to you. The links are disclosed as affiliate links, and I just want to be completely open about it. You'll be able to find all the show notes at In this case, it's going to be episode 9, so it's going to be jbdcolley.com/OLP009, and that's where you can find the show notes. So, Kathy, that's brilliant. We'll also highlight your free course. I'll find some links as well to your other courses, just so people can go and find them. Once they've taken the first course and they're desperately excited about doing more of your courses, then it'll make it easier for them. So we'll definitely do that. The last thing to say is really, how can people find you? Where should they go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, the best place to go is thebigbookproject.com. That's my website. And if you're interested in self-publishing, I've actually got a few interviews. I don't do a formal podcast, but I put interviews up with people from time to time on the blog. So that's thebigbookproject.com. And I'm very easy to find on social media. It's Kathy Presland on Twitter. I have a Facebook page at Kathy Presland. I also have a personal profile. I'm quite open to people I know saying, I found you. I'm a student in your course. Can I become friends with you on Facebook? I'm quite open to that. And actually, Facebook is quite a good medium as well to connect and ask me questions about self-publishing. I have lots of people who, sometimes you have a quick question: is it right for me? Should I create a course or should I write a book? Which should I do first? Let's just have an open discussion. I really enjoy seeing those discussions on Facebook, and obviously helping people take that next step, and really get their content out there on the digital platforms, whatever that platform is for you. I just think it's such a great opportunity that anything I can do to move people a step forward, I'm obviously more than willing to do.
Brilliant, Kathy, that's really fantastic. So I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. Kathy, thank you for your time. The course is called Publish Your Book on Kindle. It will be in the show notes, and I really appreciate you coming and telling us all about it. I'm sure the members of the Online Learning Podcast will join me in thanking you as well.
Oh, you're very welcome, John. Thank you, and thanks to your listeners. Have a great day.
And you too. Thanks very much. Wow, Kathy, thank you very much indeed. That was a fantastic contribution from you, and I'm sure we're all now rushing out to go and get our own ebooks onto the Kindle platform. If you want to find the details of all those links, you can go to the show notes, which are at jbdcolley.com/OLP009. But let's move now on to our free course recommendation of the week, and we're staying with a Kindle-related theme for this one. Let's take a look at this week's free course of the week. For this week's free course recommendation, I want to draw your attention to a course entitled Kindle Book Promotion. Tips to promote your book right now. So the thinking here is, once you've done Kathy's course and you've got your book up on Kindle, this is an extra bonus which will help you to promote it. The course is being authored by Amy Harrop and Deborah Drum. It is 6 lectures, 1.5 hours of content. It has over 1,500 users and 32 reviews, most of which again appear to be 5-star reviews, because the average is well over 4.3, 4.4. The thinking is very simple. You've published your book, so now what? This course will help you to discover easily, cheaply and effectively how to promote your Kindle book. There are 5 parts which uncover a variety of promotional techniques which you can apply immediately to increase your book sales and your exposure for your book on the Kindle platform. So I hope you'll find it a real benefit. It ties in really nicely with Kathy's course. It's entitled The Kindle Book Promotion, or Kindle Book Promotion, Tips to Promote Your Book Right Now, by Amy Harrop and Deborah Drum. So that's it for episode 9. My thanks to Kathy, and my thanks to you for spending this time with me for this episode of the Online Learning Podcast. Don't forget show notes at jbdcolley.com/OLP009. I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode of the Online Learning Podcast. So that's it for another episode of the Online Learning Podcast. I really appreciate you being with me. If you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would go over to iTunes and leave me a rating, preferably a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, and a comment. And then if you email me, john@jbdcolley.com, that's Juliet Bravo Delta Colley.com, I will send you a free coupon code to my Udemy course, An Introduction to Startups, which has got 40 minutes of video teaching you all about startups. So thank you very much for spending time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. This has been the Online Learning Podcast.